Give me 9 minutes and I'll improve your cold calling skills by 192%. That is not clickbait. And honestly, based on what I've seen coaching this, it's probably closer to 592%. My name is Connor Murray. I've spent 7 years in enterprise software sales from SDR to enterprise account executive. I've coached thousands of reps on what actually works on the phones, not sales enablement fluff. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 3 cold call hacks that are by far the fastest ways I've found to boost cold call performance. So let's get right into it. So hack number 1 is maintaining what I call an assumptive frame throughout the entire cold call. Essentially maintaining this frame that you're assuming and expecting this meeting to be happening, not asking if they're interested or open to it. And there's 2 key parts to doing this. One is in your tonality and the other's in the language that you use. So I want to start with tonality and specifically what I call a downward inflecting tonality. So to use an analogy for a second, pretend you're back in school, you're in math class, the teacher asks 2 students to solve a complicated problem. They're up on the board, they're covering the whole thing. The first one gets to the answer, circles it, and says the answer is 5. And then the second one does the same thing, but they kind of hesitantly circle it and look to the teacher and say, the answer is 5. If you're a student in the class watching them, who do you assume is smarter? Both gave the same answer, and let's pretend they're right. But who do you assume is smarter? Who do you assume is the subject matter expert? It's the person who had the downward inflection and said the answer is 5. So it's no different on these cold calls when you're reaching out and telling them who you are, why you're reaching out to them, which is what priorities and challenges you solve and how you solve them. The person they're more likely to trust is the one with a downward inflecting tone as opposed to an upward inflecting tone. And while it's important to maintain this throughout the entire cold call, the 2 most critical parts are 1, at your cold call opening, and 2, when you're going for the meeting. So at your cold call opening, whatever it is, you want to start with a downward inflection. Hey, this is Connor Murray calling from XYZ company. How are you? As opposed to, hey, this is Connor Murray calling from XYZ company. How are you today? You're signaling with that downward inflection that you are expecting to just continue talking. You're not asking for their permission. And then 2, when going for the meeting, which is part of the language below, but essentially saying with a downward inflection, yeah, I'm looking to set up some time this week just to get introduced and aligned with your priorities going forward. How's your calendar look next week on Wednesday or Thursday? As opposed to, so if you're interested, I'd love to set up some time, etc. But that takes me to the passive language, because usually a downward inflecting tonality is accompanied by stronger assumptive language. That's the key. Where an upward inflecting tone is accompanied by passive language. So passive language examples are, if you're interested, I'd love to set up a time to chat, or if you're open to it, are you possibly free? It starts with an if generally, or are you possibly free? You're basically implying that this meeting may not be worth it, and it's up to them whether it'll be interesting or worth their time. Why do you even want to introduce that idea? And again, it's all subconscious, but this stuff makes a massive difference on cold calls. So if you take nothing from this video, the quickest way this will get you 192% improvement on its own is replacing all passive language, if you're interested, with stronger, more assumptive language. Yeah, I'm looking to set up some time this week too, or yeah, let's set up some time. Either way, like looking to set some time this week just to blank, blank, and blank. And then you say it with that downward inflection. Those 2 together are the most powerful formula to improving your cold call results I have seen. I have seen reps from not being able to book any meetings over the phone. This was the only thing they needed to change. And then all of a sudden they're booking 3, 4, 5 meetings per week. Okay, hack number 2, make the ask, AKA go for the meeting, go for the kill. This might sound obvious, but if you don't actually ask for the meeting, you have a 0% chance of booking the meeting. Cold calling is a probability-based game. I think all people understand that at a high level. Generally, the more cold calls you make, the more chances you have to book meetings. But that's only partially true. If you don't actually ask for the meetings on these cold calls, then you don't have you have a 0% chance you're not on the playing field. It doesn't matter how many cold calls you make. And it sounds obvious, but most people, and this is not your fault, do not structure their cold calls to support this goals. A lot of reps are trained by sales enablement and the advice they see on YouTube and LinkedIn to lead off with open-ended qualifying questions, get BANT, uncover their budget, their need, their timeline, and then and only then book the meeting once there's enough interest. And I learned this the hard way. When I was new to cold call meeting, I would have these calls where I was asking great questions, firing on all cylinders, essentially running these in-depth discovery calls. And then I'd get 10 minutes in, I'd hear their voice start to falter because they're probably busy in the middle of their workday. And they say, you know what, just shoot me an email, I'll circulate it to my team. And what felt like a great call turned into a shoot me an email, and I realized I wasn't even giving myself chances to book meetings. These meetings are valuable. The more of them that I can book, the more money in my pocket, but I need to structure my calls to not just give me one chance at booking the meeting, but many chances at booking the meeting. Another mindset shift that goes into realizing this is that the goal of a cold call is to book a meeting with a qualified prospect. You've found someone, whether it's their job title, the industry they work in, where you've identified, I want to book a meeting with this person. Therefore, you're selling time. You're not selling your entire value proposition, nor is it your responsibility to do that on a cold call. You're selling 15 to 30 minutes, whatever it is, of time on their calendar to set up a Zoom meeting. So you don't need to uncover BANT and budget and all that stuff. You're only selling a meeting. And the way to do this is by maintaining that assumptive frame and then positioning yourself as a valuable resource to them going forward in key priorities, challenges, and outcomes that they care about. Now, the problem a lot of reps face is they don't get to the point in all of this quick enough. They don't tell them what types of priorities and challenges and outcomes they work on. They just start off asking questions, and you've generally just interrupted a busy working professional who's probably rifling through spreadsheets and has stuff they have to do, and they're not interested in asking your questions. So it creates this short, choppy cold call where they're giving you a defensive tone, and you don't even get the chance to get out your value proposition. So what I tell people is to structure your calls using a value statement. I'll link to videos where I go way more in depth on that. But essentially, you want to take control at the outset of the cold call and state your intent. You want to get right to the point. And the way you do this is by answering 3 questions in about 30 seconds. And those questions are who you are, why you are calling them, which is what priorities and challenges that you solve for and how you solve them at a high level. And then what you want is time on their calendar. You acknowledge that you probably just interrupted them in the middle of their very busy workday. And what you were more actually looking to do was set aside some time later this week to introduce you to their team. So essentially, you want to front load the value, deliver a value statement. And once you tell them what you want, that is your first shot on net. And I want that happening at the first 30 seconds to 45 seconds of the cold call. And part 2 to this is, naturally, not everyone's just going to take you up on it out of the gate. That's to be expected. So when they start giving you objections, you don't want to focus on overcoming and handling the objection or debating it. You want to acknowledge their concern and tell them why it makes sense to meet anyway. Essentially, double down, sell the time, give yourself another shot on net. This is how you can structure cold calls so that they don't last 15 minutes, because we don't want that anyway. And we're giving ourselves multiple probabilities of booking the meetings. Then it becomes about how can we increase those probabilities by improving our tone, by improving our value statement, by improving our preparation for common objections. This is a big mindset shift for cold calling. It sounds super obvious, make the ask, but most people are not taught to actually do that in practice. All right, so assumptive frame, we're prepared to make the ask. The final hack is to use a repeatable script so that you're not reinventing the wheel on every cold call. You need to develop the ability to cold call without preparing between every single call. You shouldn't need to pull up their LinkedIn. You don't need to know everything about their company and their industry in order to book a meeting. You really just need to know some key buying triggers, their title, the industry they work in, how many employees they have, whatever your best buying are, and you can structure similar lists and similar scripts so that you know it's going to be relevant to all of them. So an example, if you were calling controllers that work in the retail industry, here's how you can deliver a who, why, what value statement. Hey, John, this is Connor Murray calling from Capital Site. How are you? Good. Yeah, the reason I'm reaching out is I'm part of our financial applications team here that supports organizations like ABC Retail, and we focus on priorities related to inventory, cost control, multi-location financial visibility, and accelerating month-end close cycles, usually by working with finance teams to centralize store-level reporting and improve forecasting accuracy using the AI and automation built into our tools. So I know I kind of called you out of the blue here, so I was actually more looking to set some time later this week just to introduce you to my team and make sure we're ready to support you when the time is right. How does your calendar look on Wednesday or Thursday? Now, if I was calling a new list of VPs of FP&A and life science, I can keep 90% of that same structure and just replace what I put here in highlighted purple with clinical trial planning, budget forecasting, commercialization, etc. This is how you can use a repeatable structure with a downward inflecting assumptive tone where you're making the ask and give yourself high probabilities of booking meetings. So if you want more in depth on how to actually implement this in your own role, if it resonated, you can check out Cold Call Mastery. I have weekly live coaching in there where I can guide you through this stuff. Hope you guys got value out of this one, and I'll see you on the next one.